Hello, welcome back. In this afternoon session, we are going to start now with another panel. Our moderator is Ricardo Morgado, who is Director of WAM Investments. Ricardo is since May 2022 the Director of WAM Investments, family office dedicated to investment and assets management, including the promotion of projects and technologies in the blue economy sector, such as offshore wind energy and aquaculture, through the WAM Holding Horizon, where he is a member of the Board of Directors. He is also a member of the Board of Directors of WavEC since 2018. So I give you the floor, Ricardo.
Our colleagues from Spain, buenas tardes para todos. As well as to the Spanish Embassy to support this seminar, as well as a special word to WavEC, Antonio Sarmiento, Marco as well, in the new role. It's a pleasure for me again to be here. I've been participating over the last years in this seminar, and particularly with this great panel on my left side. Just introductory notes before we jump into the presentations. I think, and of course, humbly speaking, that we are here speaking about a panel regarding supply chain, in which perhaps will be what will drive the installations of offshore wind in the future. More than political willingness and targets that were quite explained during the morning session, I think the driver for all this will be how capable we are in Portugal, in Spain, all over the world, to answer to the installations and the demand that the industry will have. Of course, just to give you also some brief notes before jumping in, I think it's important for all of us to stay with this, and perhaps most of you knows, but last year into 2021, roughly around 17 gigawatts of offshore wind projects were commissioned worldwide. Mostly of that, around 14, was commissioned in China. Why? Perhaps because they also have quite strong supply chain over there, above other things. In the end of 2022 and during end of 2021 and during 2022, around 25 gigawatts of offshore wind was under construction. Half of it in Asia, and the other remain half between Europe mostly and a little bit in the United States. But we are talking about floating offshore wind, not floating wind in particular. And when we jump now to the floating wind, we end up with roughly 125 megawatts installed worldwide. So targets of 10 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts are dramatically challenged. And I think what mostly drive all this is the capability of the supply chain. By the way, we are now between two countries, Portugal and Spain, which were perhaps representing more than 95% of all the floating foundations installed in Europe. They were produced between Portugal and Spain. So I think we are here in a very right moment to bring the reality to the table, understand the challenge that the supply chain will have, not only in the fabrication, but also in OEM, in the technology, in design. So that's why I consider this a very important session for today. Of course, we all know also the targets of Europe. These were 70 gigawatts up to 2030, perhaps more. We have currently 20. So we are talking about hundreds of thousands and thousands of foundations and generators to be installed over the next years. Is Europe prepared to answering all this? Is Portugal and Spain prepared to answer all this? We want to be independent from energy? Will we be dependent from the supply chain or not in Europe? So I think that's pretty interesting questions that I hope my colleagues will also try to help us to clarify this. So I will jump immediately for the introductions. I have the pleasure to have here Andreia Fernandes. Andreia is the country manager of AT InnoEnergy for Portugal. She has a long track record, more than 15 years in management positions related to several energy business. She also works for LANEG, for Grupo Mekin, Kimar Energy, and she's been trying to boost all this industry and all these developments over last year. So Andreia, stage is yours, please.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to see this big audience in this sector that is crucial, in my opinion, for us in the Iberian region in general, because we have indeed strong capabilities that we can put into work in order to develop and deploy more and more wind floats, wind offshore farms. So I have here this. Okay. My presentation is divided in two small blocks. So first, an introduction of what InnoEnergy does, and the other part to really address some of the insights that we have found in Iberia regarding the supply chain for wind offshore. And why speaking a bit about InnoEnergy? Because we work in innovation, in the innovation field, specifically in the energy part of the innovation, and there might be opportunities because innovation is a critical factor in all the businesses that we are seeing here today. So a bit of history. We started in 2011 here in Portugal. That I had the office here. We started in 2012, and basically we help to create and support companies by accelerating them. So bridging the time to market of technologies, solutions, processes, whatever the market is in need. We have supported, in terms of volume, is quite amazing actually. We have supported a lot of companies. We are now, since 2018, we are walking a different path, but still our DNA and our direction is really to support innovative companies to reach the market faster and bigger. As a company, we are a public and private partnership, so it's a quite strange animal when we speak, because we are not fully public, but we are not fully private. In terms of our investment strategy, and we invest with the equity exchange, the impact is a must. So these companies, and on the right side you can see already from 2020 the economic and social impact of the companies that we have been supporting since 2012. And the environmental impact is an expectation for 2025. So, is already ending? So we operate under thematic fields. We have 8 where we build our investment roadmaps. And this why is not because we believe that energy is put in a box. It's because we have expert teams inside of the company across Europe. We are a pan-European company that focus more on the process of following that company, on the technology, on the team, on the financing, whatever they need. So some accolades. It's very nice for me to be here and saying that we are very good, but indeed we have been acknowledged by third parties as investors that are very active. In terms of volume, indeed we are the leader in the world, so we are the investment company in the sector of the energy that have invested in more startups. And this, of course, are values that are cumulative since 2012. And this is the second part of the story. So in 2018, and my objective here is really to share with you the way that we support these companies and why are we different from other companies that invest there in the world. So in 2018, we have been approached by Northvolt. So Northvolt is one of the companies and one of our unicorns that had a vision back then, so 2018, an idea, a vision, some capabilities, but very early stage. And in order for us to support Northvolt, so we believed in the team, we believed in the business case that was in front of us, but there was no market in Europe for batteries, for EVs. All the capabilities were in Asia, some in the US, and Europe didn't have this value chain. So in order to support Northvolt, we went a great length to start this thinking, the strategic value chain approach. We went to the European Commission, well, not myself personally, but someone in the company did, our CEO, and addressed the concerns that Europe was lagging behind, didn't have this value chain, and the electrification of the mobility and transportation was there. So what will Europe do? Stay behind or do something to change this? And it started that they support InnoEnergy to animate something called the European Battery Alliance. And this European Battery Alliance has a mission of delivering a full value chain in Europe with a return of 250 billion euros per year for that industry. So basically, we started out, and out of that initiative, where we join industry, research, market, talent, we have already 3 unicorns, so companies that have received more than 100 million euros this day. So this is what we think accelerates. Close collaboration, very focused on the market and building strategic value chains that Europe needs to compete and stay relevant in the energy field in the future. So we have replicated this with hydrogen, with the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center, and we will announce very soon the formal launching of the PV. It is called, I think, the name European Solar Alliance. So it's not initiative, it's alliance. Taking this into note, and now I will start with the second part of the presentation. We indeed need to analyze the supply chain as part of a big value chain. And we did back in 2020. So this is a disclaimer basically, because since 2020 the world has changed. We know that. Uncertainty brings risk, yes, but also opportunities. And I think this particular value chain is keen to be accelerated by all the things that we are now seeing happen. So basically, these were the 3 questions that we put ourselves. This study report was made with the collaboration with Enzen. And I want to share with you some things that we have found back in 2020, that in terms of technology, technology is still, as a whole, innovative. So we need to think and we need to support the innovation, particularly in some components that are still not mature to enter the market. So they are not even pre-commercial. They are on the research side. And this is quite important when, for example, someone thinks about investing in new projects, pilots, proofs of concept. We really need to think this as a whole. In terms of operational capabilities or sector capabilities, we have a strong, and now focusing on the supply chain here, we have a strong capability-driven supply chain already in Iberia. So there are, and of course this comes from the historical relationship that we have with onshore wind. So a lot of the knowledge and the capabilities used there can be migrated fairly easy to the offshore part. So indeed we have a strong capability here in Iberia, but there are some gaps. And these gaps are the ones that need to be addressed and accelerated faster, because the technology as a whole does not function without the optimal alignment of all the components. And also we have location capabilities, definitely. I don't need to tell you this. And this is something that not a lot of regions in the world can replicate. So this is something that could be an advantage point for us. In terms of markets, and of course, when we think about innovation, we are not only thinking on the technology development, but on the off-taker. Who is going to buy this? Does this make sense? And of course, for sure, you already discussed this, the market is there. Actually was already referred what are the potentialities for this market. So all in all, Europe and the east coast of the US seem to be the go-to market for these projects. In terms, and I think probably this is the most relevant slide of my presentation for you, the audience. So indeed, we need to understand what are the dynamics in different regions in Europe. And an effort to build a strategic value chain that we have done it in the past with good results entails collaboration, probably not only with Portugal and Spain for the Iberian region, but for the whole Europe. Because you can see here, and you know this very well, that there are some capabilities, like for example, the nacelles, that basically Denmark, till today, has this knowledge, and very few others have. So if we want to accelerate a new market, we need probably to think to collaborate further with these players. And it's just an example. We have back of the race in two main areas. Of course, things happen in 2 years, but still we are very far back on the race on the nacelles, like I mentioned, and the cables. And curiously, we have someone from cables here, so it's you. And he will talk about that for sure. So there are a lot of things that can be done, but we need to start. And this is important. I think WavEC is one of the entities here in Portugal that indeed is tackling this. So I think we are on the right track. So, conclusions. So last slide. Strong supply chain. Some gaps need to be addressed as soon as possible, and collaboration. So in terms of the value chain, this is what the report has told us. We have indeed capabilities. Let's put those at the best use. We can, with these capabilities, attract foreign investment outside of Europe that is willing to come to invest and use the criteria of sustainability that we want to enforce in Europe. And this is quite important. We cannot see, in my opinion, the Chinese or the Americans or whatever Asian power, that they are competitors. They are competitors, but they can be also collaborators if the rules of the game are set as we see fit. Immediate addressable markets are there, are identified. Potential customers are there, off-takers are there. And all in all, I leave this question: what would be the impact of becoming a real hub, and this is specifically for the Iberian region? What would be the impact? And this is something that probably you know very well. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreia. Very interesting presentation indeed, particularly because you highlight here that Portugal and Spain, they perhaps have the most reliable and capable supply chain now in all Europe. So it's, and again, it's a matter, your map shows that this is a matter of collaboration more and not country by country. Thank you for your presentation. Now,
My pleasure.
it's time to ask José Cândido for the stage. José has been the head of economy and industry at WavEC. He has a very long experience, perhaps around 20 years in all these sectors. And he's presenting today a presentation called Realizing the Offshore Wind Targets in Portugal. I think it's a very good term.
Yeah.
Go ahead, José.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. And although I'm playing at home, thank you for the invitation to speak here. Yeah, I would like to talk, I'm not kind of strictly focused on the supply chain. I would like to talk a bit about what we have in Portugal in terms of offshore wind targets, what are the challenges, where WavEC sits in all that, and in particular give a bit focus to the Twin project. We are happy to be co-hosts of this event here, which is also part of the final event of the project. So, yeah, first and foremost, I'm pretty sure most of you all already know this, but just very briefly, if you don't know WavEC, we were founded back in 2003, initially as a spin-off from the Technical University at Lisbon. We are formally an association, currently with 8 associates from industry and academia. We have a highly qualified multidisciplinary team from different backgrounds. Our staff is roughly around 20 permanent staff. 6 of us are PhDs. We work in close collaboration with universities, authorities, and industry alike. And we have extensive international partnerships in a great part because of our great involvement in framework public projects. Our services are provided in a range of areas that you can see described there, from instrumentation, data acquisition, complex systems engineering, a lot of work in site and project development, environmental monitoring and impact assessment, and also logistics and infrastructure, among others. Our main business area is marine renewable energies, and in particular offshore wind. But we also have some activity on offshore aquaculture and also in ocean energy solutions to support the blue economy. Yeah, so first and foremost, why we've been talking about this already today, so why offshore wind in Portugal? We have deep water close to the shore. The seabed is predominantly sandy. There are no significant currents along our coast, which is a plus. A great part, most of the electricity consumption happens along the coastline. We have a good set of ports and shipyards along the coast, which could be the basis for further development of the infrastructures. We have a long-standing tradition in metal industry. There is also a culture of cooperation between stakeholders, and also we have experience and international recognition in research and development and innovation, and a strong domestic capabilities in this regard. And plus we are, as you know, developing test sites to support the fostering of the sector. According to the Global Wind Energy Council, roughly the technical potential in Portugal amounts to 130 gigawatts. 14 gigawatts of that would be suitable for bottom fixed foundations, but the great bulk of it is more suitable for floating solutions. So this to give you a bit of the context of why it makes sense offshore wind in Portugal. In terms of the main marks in the development of offshore wind in Portugal to date, I think WavEC can be proud of having had the vision initially of the potential, the real potential of offshore wind in Portugal. We provided the benchmarking study back in 2007 and took a seminar on offshore wind energy to EDP Innovation. We also were behind, in the basis of the matchmaking between Principal Power and EDP. Principal Power established in Portugal in 2009, and we saw also the initiation of the Wind Plus joint venture. The demonstration wind float project was connected to the grid back in December 2011. As you know, it operated successfully for 5 years. And now, as you know, we have the Wind Float Atlantic. The first platform was connected in December 2019. And as you know, you have 3 8.4 megawatt Vestas turbines assembled in principal power platforms. Okay, so WavEC, of course, already has an extensive and had an extensive expertise in offshore wind, but we have, of course, more mature and well-established sectors and markets across Europe, and this was behind the rationale that came to the Twin project. The full name of the project is Twinning for an Offshore Wind Energy Partnership. We're talking about the coordination and support action with an overall budget of a little under 800,000 euros. We started in 2019 and we're due to end the project by the end of this year. Just to give you a bit of the scope behind the project, so this is a twinning action, and the objectives of the twinning actions are to strengthen the defined fields of research, in this case offshore wind, in an institution, research institution from a widening country, in this case Portugal, by linking it with at least 2 internationally leading research institutions. Also, the objective is to enhance the scientific and technical capacity of the linked institutions, but of course the main focus on the institution from the widening country, again in this case WavEC from Portugal, and also to help raise the research profile of the institution from the widening country, again WavEC, and also of its staff. So this is a bit to give you the scope. The consortium is fairly small, so we have 4 partners. WavEC Offshore Renewables, as the institution from the widening country, is the coordinator of the project. And we have in it also TECNALIA, my colleague Germán is here and he will be speaking afterwards. But we also have Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult from the United Kingdom and the Technical University of Delft from the Netherlands. We, from the very beginning of the project, established these vectors, which sort of work as strategic pillars for all developments in the project. And this goes from a supply chain development to innovative thinking, capacity building, public awareness, but also across all this interdisciplinary research. In terms of that, we've identified early in the project a few areas of interest in terms of scientific focus, and just to name them: wall system digital twins for large offshore wind turbines, high fidelity computational modeling, add-ons for wind turbine blades, and also numerical modeling and validation for floating offshore wind turbines. Of course, the teams developed, and nowadays we had much more activities, twinning activities within the project that didn't focus strictly on these areas. So going back to this, just to know, so the project is designed targeting a few groups. The target groups and the activities are distributed by this, so the senior staff exchanges, the senior staff and junior staff, so researchers, and also stakeholders. Between the activities, we had short-term staff exchanges, experts visits for partnership building, think tank meetings on different teams, short courses and summer schools, and also visits to laboratories and test facilities, these for the early stage research staff. Also workshops for stakeholder engagement, roundtable discussions, and an educational program that was run within the project. So, yeah, this about the Twin project. Back when we started, the reality of offshore wind was one. Now, as you know, it's quite different. So the COVID happened, the war in Ukraine happened, and now we had the announcement, as you all know, of the offshore wind auctions in Portugal. As you know, 10 gigawatts of capacity were announced. The first auction is expected to happen in 2023. Working groups have been launched since then, and the main focus of these groups is to work on what I'll now start to name. So propose a time schedule for the preferential areas for the development and also the respective indicative power for each of the areas. and this to be in the base of the attribution of the reserve of capacity licenses and the associated titles for the private use of the maritime space, but also to propose technical and investment model for the development of the offshore and onshore electrical infrastructure. We've been talking about this. We don't know yet if it's going to be a shallow, super shallow, or deep financing approach. There's different models being adopted across Europe, as you may know. Also assess the needs for port infrastructure development, and in the end present a report with recommendations to the government by the end of May 2023. So across Europe, the tendering system has been revealing to be the best support mechanism to bring down the costs of offshore wind. And I would like to bring here just the UK case, and in particular the results of the 4th contracts for difference auction rounds that, as you know, were very recently published. In this 10.8 gigawatts, so a bit short below 11 gigawatts was awarded for all the technologies, but 7 gigawatts of these were for offshore wind, fixed offshore winds. This total amount is twice the previous, what was achieved in capacity in the previous round, and it amounts to practically 14% of UK's current generation. The average price was £48 per megawatt hour, which is 9 times cheaper than the current cost of running gas-fired power stations, and here we're including, obviously, purchasing the gas, buying all the necessary licenses for carbon emission. And these numbers are, of course, very updated because, as you know, there's been quite a significant change in the price of running gas in the last few months. In terms of offshore wind, the winning bids were at a record low average price of a bit below 44 euros per megawatt hour, and this is a strike price, so inflation indexed in 2012 prices, and this comparing to the previous 47 megawatts in previous auction round. Given the current prices of the market preferences, it's expected that most of these projects will be paying back to the consumers for a great part of their lifetime. So technically, they can be seen as subsidy-free, although this is highly debatable. Now going back a bit to the Portuguese context, WavEC, as you know, there's been a lot of movement on offshore wind. There's been a lot of players in Portugal with it showing interest, and they've been seeking for our support. And we've been supporting financiers, developers, promoters, among others. I'll just give you a bit of a list of the most sought services nowadays. We've been having requests to assess floating offshore wind technologies, to assess the typological challenges throughout the lifetime cycle of these technologies, and also their potential compatibility with the Portuguese context. Also, we've been asked to have a support on understanding the development of offshore wind legislation and licensing processes in Portugal. Also, we've been having a lot of work on identification and assessment of potential locations for installation of projects across Portugal. We've been been supported by our in-house Oasis site selection tool, and this together with the characterization of all the environmental and other non-technical barriers deriving from the maritime spatial planning. Equally, we've been doing a lot of economic assessment of large-scale offshore wind farms. We've been presenting 2 levels of detail in this, so we have a different level of details for the technical economic analysis that we've been providing, and also support in the preparation and the submission and the discussions with authorities regarding scoping proposals for the environmental impact assessment. Before finishing, I would just like to go a bit through the different challenges that we see in the next developments in Portugal, and this mostly from infrastructure and services point of view. Of course, this has been talked, there's obvious port logistics challenges. We need to characterize deeply what is the current port infrastructure, know what are the needs in terms of storage space, availability of cranes, drafts, and so on, all these aspects. And this is equally valid for assembly sites, know where they can be done, where's the space for that. where there's been a lot of talk also about the grid reinforcement, which most likely will happen close to the locations that will be chosen offshore. But apart from this also, we need to have an understanding of the costs of integrating increasing levels of variable renewable energy sources. And for that, we need to upgrade the grid to be able to absorb these variable sources. And of course, there's the need to understand the supply chain, what would be the challenges, what are the gaps, as Andreia was saying. And as Adrian said very well this morning, we cannot talk about a local supply chain. It's a global supply chain, at best a regional supply chain, and we can only think in terms of Europe. And there's the high risk that the supply chain will be exhausted with the high demand that we'll be seeing. So there's the need to find mitigation measures for this. And going back to the twin project related to this, so there's been a lot of work in stakeholder engagement. That's what Germán will be presenting next. One of the main outcomes of the project has been this supply chain matrix, which I think you'll be talking more about, but we just try to identify all the services that are needed throughout the lifetime of the projects, from cradle to grave, and identify potential companies that will be willing to provide these services. I think this is all I have to say to you, so thank you very much.
Thank you, José. Indeed, a great presentation, and it all starts from the first studies and interactions, and you also described very well what WavEC is able to provide in these efforts to push offshore wind in Portugal. Now is the time to leave the stage to Germán Pérez Morán. He is the manager of the offshore renewables team at TECNALIA. TECNALIA is a Basque Country center based in Spain, and Germán is working as a manager for the renewable teams. He's also co-author of more than 30 papers and 3 patents, all related with offshore wind, wave energy and grid connection. And he's here also to share with us, as José Cândido made before, the TWind project activities, the results, the conclusions, and I think it's a very good tool for the next years. Please, Germán, go ahead.
Thank you for the introduction, José. Thank you also for the introduction to this twin activity I'm going to present now. We heard this morning roadmaps, the willingness of the promoters to develop projects. We also had presentations about different technologies, and now we are facing the supply chain, how to develop the supply chain to accomplish all those ambitious targets. Well, as José mentioned before, one of the activities within this twin project was what we call stakeholders engagement, which is kind of developing or helping companies to enter into the offshore wind supply chain. Well, you can read here some of the objectives. This is a European project, and the focus was on developing opportunities or trying to raise opportunities mainly for Portuguese companies. We had a strong focus on SMEs, as we understand that big companies are better positioned to work on the different parts of the project development, and we put more the focus on trying to attract SMEs to this to the sector. Well, as a summary, the idea behind this task, this specific task, work package in the project, was to develop skills, to provide some knowledge transfer, and to raise some R&D opportunities to these companies willing to enter into the offshore wind sector. We had 3 different types of activities. First, we work on how to do this stakeholders engagement. We develop a plan for the identification of companies, categorization of them in terms of what products or services are they providing. How can we visualize? José already showed you this matrix, and then keep they engaged with the activities we are used to do, especially in the R&D environment at European level. Then we work on the development of this matrix, and we had different networking activities. The first two ones were two online workshops when we were in the lockdown due to COVID. We presented two different calls from the European Commission. One of those was the Green Deal call, and also the first calls of Horizon Europe, in order to show how this environment or these R&D activities in the European Commission works, especially for those companies which were not so used to work in these activities. And then we hosted a workshop during Wind Europe's conference this year in Bilbao in order to give the voice to some of those companies who are part of the supply chain matrix. We had a very nice workshop. And the final workshop, which is this one, as it was mentioned before, Twin, together with WavEC, is co-sponsoring, and also the Embassy of Spain co-sponsoring this event today. We follow different steps. First one was the identification of the stakeholders, identification of companies for the definition of this matrix. We had a direct contact with some of them, using the contacts of the 4 partners in the project. We also produce an online form. We talk and do some kind of contacts via the sectoral associations and at national levels. We put the focus on Portuguese companies, but we also open it for, as we know, the offshore wind sector is not a national thing, it's an international thing. We open it to other companies in Spain, France, Germany, UK, in markets with maybe more experience, like German, UK, and so on. Then we did some categorizations in terms of to organize how we present all the companies, all the services, and we define different steps, different stages in the project development. We defined different products and services for each of the life cycle of the project, every stage. And then we did this matrix for the visualization or to understand the stakeholders community. It's available on the project website. I encourage you to visit and click on the link and take a look, because you may find a very interesting company in Portugal, in Spain, in the UK, or maybe to partnership for a service, a product, or whatever. It's updated periodically until the end of the project, and you can also access to the online form to fill in and to be part of this matrix in the future. Well, I guess you can see nothing. That was the idea, exactly. The matrix is organized as you can identify company and country, the project stage in the life cycle of a project, from the planning, consenting, manufacturing, installation, and different services, activities, products, and services, and also areas of interest of those companies identified. I think we had so far almost 100. I think it's 94 different companies, and if we zoom in, you can take a look on how the twin looks, and yeah, you have also the information of the companies and information, their interests, and also websites, and if you need any other thing, have any other interest, you can just contact the coordinators via the website, and we can provide more information or a meeting or whatever. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Germán. So now it's the time to move into a different world in the supply chain, I would say. We have here today Tiago Ornelas from ENDIPREV. Tiago is the Business Development Manager of ENDIPREV Group For who doesn't know who is ENDIPREV, is one of the leading international companies on the commissioning, preventive maintenance, as well as corrective and major corrective measures in the onshore and offshore wind sector. So it's a good example from Portugal to the world. I know that ENDIPREV has many technicians playing worldwide in the offshore wind farms. So perhaps Tiago will give us a global view of the global offshore supplier which ENDIPREV is today. Please go ahead, Tiago.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ricardo, for the introduction. You already stole my pitch almost.
Sorry.
Thank you for your nice words. First, thank the WavEC for the opportunity given to show you what ENDIPREV has been doing worldwide offshore. Hopefully, in the end, you will conclude that we are ready for what's coming, and hopefully Andreia can put us in your map afterwards. I could notice that you didn't put us, and I'm a bit sad. Kidding. So the presentation I have here is structured in three main areas. So first, a brief introduction about ENDIPREV for those that are not acquainted what we've been doing. Then exactly what we've been doing the last 10 years offshore. Yes, it's 10 years. And afterwards, how we see the market evolving for us, of course. It's a bit selfish, but I think it's mainly for everyone. So, about company profile and our philosophy. As I already told you, we are, not told you, but Ricardo, we are a service provider working worldwide. The company has 13 years. It started by 5 electrical engineers, and today we are 450 technicians worldwide. We have company in Portugal, our headquarters, in USA, France, UK, and Germany. And what we do mainly is on the turbines themselves. So we don't do below water, so no conflict of interest with our diver here. And we like to say that we are the first and maybe yet the first supplier, third-party supplier that worked offshore in 3 different continents. I will explain you a bit more about that afterwards. Offshore, we have more or less this expertise, so we have around 120, 130 offshore technicians that have already exposure to the offshore environment. These are the skills, more or less, so 80 on the mechanical scopes, 50 on the commissioning, 20 on the high voltage, and also some engineering and consulting services. And now a bit about what we've been doing in the last 10 years working offshore. In 2012, we were invited by Alstom, it was already mentioned here before, that then was acquired by GE, to participate in a prototype that was for Dalia 150, a GE turbine these days. The young company was very proud to work on this Le Carnet, the pointer, always the point, yeah, in Le Carnet project there. That, of course, opened a lot of doors for the years to come, because we had our engineers working on the development of the turbine, doing the prototype, commissioning that, and afterwards, as we were performing very well, we were invited to work in Block Island and in Bellwind. Block Island is yet one of our flags. We use it on the marketing and the communication, because we were the first company that commissioned an offshore wind turbine in US. Still here, we took advantage of our knowledge of the prototype. We went to Fujian, then Mercure was the first large-scale project of GE. It's 66 turbines. It was also a milestone for the company, because we performed very well. We had a peak of 60, for those not acquainted with FT, it's field technician, I'm sorry. So we had a peak of 60 field technicians working on in Mercure prototype, and at the same time started this prototype, Aliadex, as of today, one of the most powerful turbines in offshore. And ENDIPREV was invited to kind of repeat all the process, which means that if we perform well here, that's been happening, we are working there now in Rotterdam, this will open a lot of doors for the years to come, because AliaDEX is being chosen for the projects, some very important projects in the future. In here, important to note that Global Tech and Kaskazi are Siemens offshore turbines, so we have some strategy as well. We could not be only relying on GE turbines. It was tough, but these days we are also working with Siemens offshore turbines. That is the market leader, so another big door is opening for us. Of course, I have to mention this one as well, Saint-Nazaire, first large-scale project in France. And here we reached another level. So GE here, it's a GE turbine, is still that model. And GE just said, hey, ENDIPREV, please take care of all the commissioning activities. We count on you. And the project is a success, was delivered ahead of schedule, and deserved a visit from Monsieur Macron. I need troubleshooters. Oh. So now it's just a landscape of the map, where these projects are located. So of course, mainly in the North Sea. The Fujian project here, the number 3, and then Block Island there. Quick summary of some of the projects, just to show you nice pictures, actually. This is the Belgium project, where we did commissioning and we are working on maintenance till today. We did some large operations as well. Block Island, I already mentioned, the first offshore project in US. The commission started in 2015. We opened the branch there in 2016. We have now 80 Americans working in US, of course, because there's a strategy that I can explain you a bit later. Mercure, so as I told you, the largest offshore project to date of GE, that was 66 turbines. China, a challenge, we had to open a branch in China, so you can imagine what we had to do. We already took part of the supply chain in China, so. And then the AliaDEX prototype, as I mentioned, is strategically really, really important for our company, because a lot of things are coming with this turbine. Le Carnet, yes, Saint-Nazaire, not Le Carnet, sorry. I already told you about the importance of this. So we had 120 technicians working offshore in France on the WavEC and on the SOV, so the wind installation vessel and the service installation vessel. More or less how we split our hours working offshore. The Portuguese there is on purpose, just to tell you that during the pandemic we have to move the remote control center that we also do for Mercure to Portugal, and so our engineers that control remotely the Mercure wind farm worked from Portugal. More or less how we split our scope is yet much more on relying on commissioning, and then we have the operations and also the consulting. That's where are the remote control hours, actually. That's why there's such a big, because the remote control center is a 24/7 project. Last, how we see this unfolding. 2023, we already budgeted 2023, so the rope is on my neck already. We will keep working in US, Belgium, Germany, France, and Netherlands. But we are really confident that, Vineyard is the first large-scale project in US that will be AliaDEX turbines. And Dogger Bank, the biggest offshore project ever in the world, is also AliaDEX turbines. So I hope that I could already explain you how well positioned we are to be involved with these projects in the next year. Of course, there's a lot of more opportunities coming. We have been in contact for a lot of other projects in Taiwan, in Poland. Japan is
something that we as in Portugal and in Spain, we see the news, and of course these numbers are not accurate, but we can have an idea of how we see this evolution. These only offshore field technicians, and we see this unfolding more or less like this. So in 8 years we will have, let's see, 600 field technicians working offshore, and definitely we'll be ready for this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Tiago. I think we all should say congratulations to ENDIPREV for this successful journey. You proved that good things can be made from Portugal to the world, and I think it's in a very key topic, which is OEM. It's key to make all these projects also running, successful commissioned and successful maintenance. So now we move into another very interesting topic in the global supply chain, which is the heavy fabrication, and particularly the heavy steel fabrication. We have the pleasure to have with us today Antonio Sánchez Pérez from Navantia. Antonio is leading the offshore wind commercial managers for Navantia, with a particular focus on jacket foundations, but also on floating foundations. He's been working in Navantia since many years, leading also engineering departments, and is based in the Ferrol shipyard. And just for your note, perhaps most of you knows, but Navantia manufactures and supply most of the floaters which are now installed in Europe. Of course, in Portugal we also made some of them. So I think it's a very good presence of him, because we can have a look and the idea what Antonio has for this industry. Please go ahead, Antonio.
First of all, I want to thank the invitation. It's a real pleasure for us to be here. And for me personally, because I'm quite close to Portugal. I'm living in Galicia, so it's like my second house. I'm not saying that in all the events, but this gives me the opportunity to share with you the main lines of activity of Navantia. And in this case, Navantia Synergy, because it's the new branch that we have created this year. We are the same people, but with a new color, no? Here. Perhaps somebody does not know who we are. Just a brief definition. Navantia is a 100% state-owned company. We belong to the Ministry of Finance in Spain, and we have three business lines: shipbuilding, services, and now Navantia Synergies, what we call the green division. Talking about this green division, we have three business areas. One, offshore wind. This is the one that we will focus today. We have another area, a very young area, with hydrogen and services. We are located mainly in two main areas. One in the north, in the Ferrol shipyard. There is two shipyards. So there is one shipyard devoted for the naval shipbuilding, for the different marines, the Spanish Marine and foreign marines. And in Fene, where we are developing offshore wind projects. The same structure, the same scenario, the same scheme is in the south, in Cadiz, where Puerto Real is also devoted to the offshore wind product construction. Facilities in Spain and France. There is not a contradiction between this slide and the previous one. I have added the facility of France, and this will open the possibility to explain later what we are doing to face the offshore wind demand that will come, well, is coming now. But these are our facilities. So the biggest one is Puerto Real with 1.2 million square meter. Fene shipyard, close to 1 million square meter. And we have rented until 2026 the new polder of Brest, 11 hectares, to develop the Saint-Brieuc project. Part of the Saint-Brieuc project has been built there with the local content that was requested by the French government. So we have learned a lot, good things and bad things, but we learn more from the bad things than from the good things. So this is something that I will come back later about this. What is our background and the portfolio? Basically, we built everything that can have something to do with offshore wind. Jackets, floating, as Ricardo has mentioned, Navantia has built 85% of the structures, floating structures that have been connected to a grid on a pre-commercial scenario. Offshore substation, HVAC and HVDC, and now we are moving. This is brand new, and this is we have incorporated to this portfolio a new facility of monopile XL. We will not compete with number one in the world. This is not the intention. The intention is when everybody is full in the activity, we have this opportunity. This factory will start now before the end of the year. So we have identified there 2 lines of construction. If the size is 11 meters of diameter, if the diameter of the monopiles is higher of that, we can reach up to 14 meters, but only with 1 line of fabrication. We have also, I have included here this picture because this can help also. This is a robot. This is a big robot. No, it is, I think, the only one that is classified to make this type of welding. We have done for 20 jackets of the Saint-Brieuc project. All the X nodes of these 20 jackets have been welded by this robot. Today the size is a problem, of course, but in the future it's very difficult to compete with this type of device. Okay, and this is a summary of what the 14 projects we have done in the last 7-8 years. So, as you can see, we have done that for 7 countries, a quite big number of key clients, Iberdrola, Equinor, EDP Ocean Wind, Scottish Power, Cobra, Able, also with our competitors. Smuldler is a competitor, but we work with them to fabricate 20 upper jackets for the Moray West project. And the last one, the 62 jackets for Saint-Brieuc. So, as I mentioned before, we have fabricated all the pieces of the lattice, except the transition piece, for 32 of these 62 jackets in the new polder of Brest. So we have established with the local content a quite important supply chain to be able to develop this project. After the fabrication of these 2D structures, they were shipped to our shipyard in Fene, and we have done the assembly of all the 62 jackets in the Fene shipyard. We are now in the process of delivering to Iberdrola the project. Okay, I wanted to highlight this one because I know that Ricardo liked this picture because it's a part of a project we have shared between Asilva Mato. They did 2 of the structures, and one structure was done by Navantia. here you can see the size of this type of structures. But this is a small, very, very small. This is around 2,400 tons. You can see the size going out of the vessel. And today, if we want to put a turbine of 15 megawatt on board, the size will multiply at least by 20% in all the sense. So this is something that we have to take into account. Down, and it's a point to take into account, I know that we have talked about it before in other panels, the ports. The ports will have a paramount importance in the close future, because we will need a lot of space. Okay, what are the next steps, or at least what are the next steps seen by Navantia Synergies? No? So, first of all, we have to find partners. We are looking for partners all around the world. This is very important. The most important thing is not the size or the space or whatever. The most important thing is the people. Just to give you a picture, we were talking during lunch about an average of 7 gigawatt for the Portugal capacity. 7 gigawatt of 15 megawatt turbine is a little bit less than 500 structures. 500 structures of more than 4,000 tons. So now, you multiply this one to the other, you have 2 million tons of steel to be deployed from now, today, till 2030. I'm not talking of the number of welders, the number of fitters, the number of scaffolders that we will need there. So this is the reason why one of the steps we want to perform is to find partners for the projects, for the next projects. We need people. And also, for sure, we need to expand our facilities. So, basically, this is the same. I wanted to show this because this is the same picture 2 years later. One is wind float, the other one is Kincardine. So the scale factor at this level is acceptable. We multiply by 5 because in the case of wind float we did 1, in the case of Kincardine we did 5. But now, with the same scale factor, the clients are asking for 20, 30 or 50 units. So for sure, we will be out. The strategy has to be different. How to deal with the timing has to be different, also for the clients, because this type of structures are not delivered like jackets 4x4 or 8x8. They are delivered 1x1. And you have always a window to install this type of structures in the site. So it's important to deal this not only with the supply chain, that is very important, but also with the clients. The clients have to know how to manage the storage of this type of units when we are building the structures. Okay, so how can we deal with all this? No? This is a picture taken from one of the projects we are developing. Don't take this as a full example, but this will help me to explain. First thing is to achieve as soon as possible to be very close with the design. We have to be, as fabricator, to be close as far as possible, because at the end, somebody was talking this morning that the main driver will be the money, the cost. If this is impossible to do because it's so expensive, we will go to the onshore activity and that's it. Perhaps it's enough, I don't know. So we have to be very close to the designers. A second point is we have to standardize blocks also to open the manufacturing market. What I mean with this? Perhaps it's more difficult to find somebody or a manufacturing supplier to give you 400 tons of block. But perhaps blocks of 200 tons can be done by a lot of small shipyards. And this will open the possibilities to companies like ours to have more suppliers. So for us, this is very important. And for sure, as I mentioned before, no, we are looking for alliances. We can't run this course alone. It's impossible. We have to find the way to establish good relationships with around the world. First in Europe, for sure, but we have this strategy in our mind, and we want to develop it as soon as possible. And also here in Portugal, of course, because it's in the past projects, we have learned how to deal with more than 200 suppliers in the different projects we have done. But now we have to establish these alliances not only with the supply chains, also with the clients. Because talking about space, the clients are looking also for the space and to guarantee them the capability to fabricate in the next years a certain amount of units. So we have also to open this to the different clients. Imagine, I was mentioning before this 7 gigawatt for Portugal. But what's happened with France? What's happened with Spain? What's happened with Greece? What's happened? So if all of them decide tomorrow to do everything at the same time, well, we are in a mess, no? And each day that we lose. So clients and partners, this is for us the paramount. This is taken from a video we did to explain to one of our clients how to make this rate. Because at the end of the day, there is contracts. And to comply with the contract, there is a schedule. And to achieve a schedule, well, you have to provide a rate. The first time that somebody asked me to deliver a quotation for the new structures, this is a structure invented by us. Don't think there is no patent behind this, nothing. No. So, but the size is the one. So we prepare a video, and they ask us to give a rate of 1 by week. This is 4,000 tons of steel. I say, sorry, we can do miracles, but perhaps it's another door. So, to do the number that we have there, I have to use not only these two shipyards, but also the Brest polder. Because I can accommodate perhaps, imagine 1 per month. If I do 1 per month, at least it's 15 days, I can deliver one. Today, the best rate we have had with the experience we have with Kincardine is 1 each 2 months. So there is a big ramp in the learning curve to achieve this. But this is something that is in the mind of the clients. And I understand that if we deliver 1 jacket or 4 jackets per month, why not delivering the same? Well, the strategy is completely different, and we have to think about it. But this is what today can be achieved with at least the 3 facilities we have. Now, we try to expand ourselves. How? Well, we have learned a lot between France and Spain. What we did with the new polder of Brest, we have rented it till 2026. So we want also to use it for the AO5 scenario scheme. So this is one scenario. We rent an area and we prepare the area as needed. The other one is what we did with Harlan and Wolff. They have the facilities, they have the supply chain, so we can adjust the agreement, an MOU or a framework agreement with them, and we use their facilities and their supply chain. These are the two ways we are looking for around the world. And I will conclude because basically, with this scenario, with this scheme, today, okay, we are in France, in Spain, of course. In England, we have a permanent establishment. We want to have a permanent establishment in the US, in the East, in the West Coast. We are quite close to sign a frame agreement with the NASCO shipyard. So this will help us to go to the West Coast. I have included Australia because Navantia has a permanent establishment in Navantia due to the military fabrication of the fleet. We have fabricated most of the Australian fleet, and we think that this can help us in the future. It's not for today or tomorrow, but this is a market that will move a lot. And we have also some areas in Asia, but this is so we are moving in this side. And of course, as I mentioned before, for us the most important thing is to open this box. We need to convince as much as possible to have strategical alliances with industries in the different countries, project by project, but this is the only way to be able to achieve what we have in front of us. To face what we have in front of us is, I was thinking that in the past, because I belong to a shipyard, it was difficult to have a contract for the next year. Today, they're asking us to reserve the space for the next 10 years. So, in any case, contact us.
Thank you, Antonio. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was indeed a fantastic one because we had now the reality from someone that already made this and not speaking based on theory about the challenge and the real capacities. And I think this makes us all thinking twice and see what we have really in front of us. Now it's time to leave the floor for another big company that is also presented since many years in Portugal. We are talking about TechnipFMC, one of the leaders companies worldwide working offshore and deep offshore. We have with us Nuno Vaz, is the business development and account manager for Iberia of TechnipFMC. He's been in this industry since more than 12 years, and he's come back from 12 years in Norway, working oil and gas subsea, to get this energy transition development through TechnipFMC New Energy Ventures portfolio. Nuno, we are pleased to have you here. Please, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, WavEC, for the invitation to be here today. Before starting, if I get the presentation. Too quick. Okay. As I was saying before starting, following up what I saw from the representative from X1 Wind, where TechnipEnergy was appearing as a shareholder, and from the chats I was having during the coffee breaks, TechnipEnergy is a spin-off of TechnipFMC. Nowadays we are different companies. So there was a spin-off happening in early 2021. And to make it simple, as you see in this picture, so TechnipFMC is everything below the sea line. So everything subsea. TechnipEnergy is everything upwards on the sea line. So it's a good split in order to avoid the misunderstanding in terms of the two companies here. And we don't have any participation or shareholding in floaters. We don't even enter that market. We are agnostic, but I can elaborate a bit more going forward. So TechnipFMC has been working as within the oil and gas offshore business for the past 45 years. So an EPCI company, engineering, procurement and construction company, providing all sorts of support to the projects and accumulating over these 45 years, so we have more than 600 projects, size range from millions to billions, contract-wise, working within the subsea production systems, basically, subsea umbilicals, risers, and flexibles, from shallow water to ultra-deep water, so as the pre-salt in Brazil, the 3,000 meters water depth, using dynamic umbilical cables. We have dynamic and static cable production since 1977, over 6,000 kilometers of delivered products, which are installed by our fleet of vessels, our 17 installation vessels fleet. As part of this global type of footprint, TechnipFMC, in terms of some of the projects, has to develop a local content and has a lot of track record and expertise on doing so. Lisbon office has been so far a bit outside this local content need. It has been more than 10 years ago that has been established. Basically, it was to support the main operating centers, so basically UK, Brazil, US, Norway, and France. It has been operating like that, but recently it's also taking the extra responsibility to becoming an operating center responsible for the projects that are being run for Angola and Mozambique. So the contracts are allocated through the office here. You can see a picture below. This is our office here in Lisbon, so it's in the towers in front of Galp, so it's in the next tower. We have by now over 190 employees, engineering, working, like I said, for the different locations, but now also starting to do some work on the new energy ventures on the energy transition that I'll be explaining. So all the past has been within the offshore oil and gas, but back in 2008, 2009, we had the first attempt into the wind offshore. So we were supplying at the time Statoil Hydro, now Equinor, for the high wind project. So we were involved from the beginning on that. But in terms of R&D development, in terms of technology development, this only started more in detail back in 2016, when a team in Norway won a funding from the Norwegian Research Institute to develop offshore production of hydrogen from wind-powered sources. So since then, we have been accumulating different initiatives on other areas that cover our product catalog, which at a certain point accumulated on the creation of the new energy ventures department within the company. This was back in 2021. And these three pillars were gathered within this new department. So I'll skip the first one, the greenhouse gases removal. So basically this is more carbon transportation and storage applicable within the subsea, but part of the process is onshore. So I'll skip this pillar, and we'll focus today on the two remaining ones. So the offshore floating renewables, where we have some interest on the wind, wave, and tidal technology, and on the hydrogen product, which the Purple project program was the genesis back in 2016. So in terms of the this is very sensitive. Can I go back? Yes. Okay. In terms of the floating offshore renewables, we have, like I was explaining, different initiatives in terms of the wind, wave, and tidal. In terms of the tidal, we have the cooperation with Orbital Marine Power. This is their concept in terms of tidal energy. We are helping them on the industrialization roadmap and to make it a scalable product that they can commercialize. We focus on the early engagement, optimization, differentiation, and de-risking of the projects with the customers, which in this case recently led to our being successfully winning Block N3 on the Scott wind licensing round through the Magnora Offshore Wind, a partnership that we have with a Magnora company in Norway. But our focus has been mainly as a system integrator, developing the dynamic cable application, subsea substations, mooring, anchoring, construction, and installation. TechnipFMC doesn't have ambition to become a developer or co-developer. The fact that we involve with some players or some developers at the early stage, it's merely an ultra front-end type of purpose. So we are able to engage from an early stage with a client to better optimize all the field development and everything that will happen further on. So there have also been some discussions about our conflict of interest in this, but no, we are not a developer or co-developer, nor we want to be. We are an EPCI company, but we enter early into this market with some customers in order to have a better position on the further on the engineering that will come at a later stage. In terms of the inter-array cables, here is an area that we have a unique offering part due to our vertical integration of the product with since the early phase, so the design, engineering of the cables, the manufacturing, everything occurs on our facility at Newcastle, where we have all the base for the cable part, together complemented with the system engineering expertise that we have, and then installing with our vessel fleet. Here you have an image of a deep energy vessel during a night installation period. By having this vertical integrated type of product, we are able to have the lowest system-wise type of costing, because we control and have a proper breakdown in terms of everything that is composed of the cable part. We are able to better control on the schedule, so on operational logistics. You don't have a cable being produced and then to be shipped it to the supplier, to the developer, and then to be parked during 1 year period or months period before being installed. No, the ship comes out of Newcastle manufacturing facility and then goes straight into the installation. So shortened and much more streamlined type of process. In terms of warranty and reliability, these are products that come from the background from oil and gas industry. So many years, since 77, as I mentioned, it has been, we have been executing these types of projects. It has some insurance type of validation, because we have very strict types of codes, regulations that have to be followed and imported from oil and gas, which is much stringent than the wind offshore type of industry. And then finally, we have the stronger background in terms of installation. On the hydrogen side, as part of the energy production side, and today once more I heard the same challenge that most of the developers are facing. It's the grid connection, and especially when it comes to the ScotWind, I've spoken with several ones, and all see the challenges in terms of having a proper onshore infrastructure and grid connection that they can connect their wind farms. So as part of one of the use cases that we have for the Deep Purple program is to have the offshore production and storage of hydrogen. This becomes a reality. It can be due to the grid constraints, the grid connection constraints. As we are going more and more offshore at a certain distance, the cable it becomes more costly than the pipeline. So then it becomes more cheap to produce hydrogen and pipe it as an energy carrier back to shore. So within that context, we have been developing, like I was saying, since 2016, the Deep Purple program that currently is having the pilot in Kongsberg, also funded by the Innovation Norway application that we had last year. We have the first hydrogen molecule produced this week at the site, so it will be fully operational by the end of the year. And you are welcome, anyone that wishes to come and visit in Norway, in Kongsberg, the pilot that is running, and the visits will be open from January next year. In parallel, we have the qualification process for the export pipe and the storage solutions. Here the storage comes as a key aspect in terms of the battery limit, how to cope with the production and the curtailment and different aspects that we need to store the energy that is produced. So here in these modules, you can see down here, each module have a capacity, it's 12 tons of hydrogen in each of these, in a footprint of 500 square meters, which is equivalent in terms of energy capability around 200 to 300 megawatt power capable, each of these modules. Why subsea? If you put and you start to produce hydrogen, even onshore, you can use the current technology to produce it. And here in Portugal, we have lots of projects that focus on the production. But if you want to start storing it onshore, then you start having some safety issues. In terms of the limitation and the safety distances, it's 600 meters from the storage part. So you start having a major consumption in terms of landscape. Just to give you an example, some years ago there was an explosion in a power station in Oslo, in Norway, which had a hydrogen supply to cars that already circulated in hydrogen. It blew up the station, no one was injured, no one was killed. It was due to a leakage in a valve that was determined, and the explosion occurred by releasing 200 grams of hydrogen. Imagine what 12 tons can do. So keep it subsea, safe and quiet, because oxygen and hydrogen don't get along too well. As part of the roadmap program, so basically now we are taking our program to TRL 6, and from TRL 6 onwards to TRL 8, we are already planning some FEED activities are already on the way for real case pilot testing, so in offshore characteristics, in real environment, at the Plocan site. So this is a partnering that we have with Floating Power Plant, a Danish company. They want to test the floater. We want to test the hydrogen production part of it. So we don't have any interest on the floater, like I said. We are agnostic on it. but we need to qualify, and we want to qualify the hydrogen production part of it. In parallel to this, by December, we will already know if we got awarded another funding to continue on the last stage of the subsea storage qualification part. This is also in Norway. It's part of, again, on the Norwegian Research Institute that will be financing these projects for energy transition. And it's basically at a fjord in Hardanger that will be a conversion. So we would be entering to qualify the storage part of it. The hydrogen is produced onshore, but it will be used on not on reverse electrolysis to power back, but to be used as a burner in the heavy metal production industry in this fjord. So basically, it's a decarbonization, heavy to abate type of sector. Again, December, we'll know if we are qualifying. This is still open for investors. So I'll take the floor also to the opportunity. If you are interested on co-investing in this development, feel free to reach out to me, because now it will be the right timing. In general, in terms of the hydrogen part, so basically we are requalifying all our core products that we have from the subsea, plus the subsea storage development. Everything else, our interest and our core technology is on the energy management system, that is in-house development, together with the control and automation part. Everything else, we act as a system integrator, taking OEM type of equipment. So basically, the compressor, desalinization, water treatment, electrolyzer part, we rely upon external suppliers and partners that work with us. We do the system integration, interface management side of things, and then we come up with a hydrogen plant. So, final slide. As the landscape and real estate becomes more and more scarce these days, so the natural frontier for large-scale renewable production will be offshore. That's a natural, and I think it's a given thing. By taking our 45 years experience from oil and gas that we are transferring now into this renewable space, together with cooperating with the right partners and joining the right setup of consortiums, we would be successfully leveraging all technology and executing the projects. Taking, like I said, our main core competency as the system technology and technology provider that we are, and we will continue to have this focus on the strategy going forward. Thank you.